You just had a productive workday and now you're about to head to bed. You feel tired, but your mind is still racing. You jump into bed, excited for some well-earned sleep, but instead of sleeping, you stare at the ceiling for 60 minutes, trying to force your brain to shut off. You worry that if you don't fall asleep fast enough, you won't feel energized for tomorrow. Night after night, you deal with the same BS, but you can't afford to not perform, especially with your busy schedule. The truth is, you probably aren't preparing for sleep the right way. So in this video, I'm going to give you a 3-step framework to fall asleep quickly and effortlessly. Now, before we get started, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Trevor, and I help growing entrepreneurs and professionals achieve consistent, high-quality sleep. And I've used this same framework to help myself go from falling asleep in over 1 hour every single night down to just 17 minutes on most nights. Now, why are you taking so long to fall asleep? And why do you keep experiencing the same problems of racing thoughts in your head, feeling wired but tired, and also waking up unrefreshed and unenergized in the morning because it takes you so damn long to actually fall asleep? So why does this happen? Well, the first reason is because of circadian rhythm unalignment. You aren't sending the right signals to your body to tell it it's time for bed. And one reason this is happening is because you have an inconsistent bedtime. And what they found in this study is that people who had a different weekday bedtime from weekend bedtime, usually by a couple of hours. So for example, somebody going to bed at 10 p.m. on the weekdays and then 1 a.m. on the weekends, what they found is their melatonin levels were delayed by 2.5 hours, meaning that their bodies didn't start preparing for sleep until much later after they got into bed, making it much harder to actually fall asleep, especially on the weekdays. Now, another reason your circadian rhythm is unaligned is because you are too warm at night. And this is especially crucial because your body needs to drop 1 degree in core body temperature to actually fall asleep. And if you're too warm, you're not going to be able to fall asleep quickly and effortlessly. Now, some things that raise your core body temperature are eating too close to bed, exercising too intensely close to bed, and then also just being in a warm sleep environment and also the environment before you go to bed. And a massive wearable-based study showed that doing intense exercise within 4 hours of bed delayed time to fall asleep by 36 minutes, which is pretty crazy. Now, the next reason your circadian rhythm is unaligned is because of blue light. And I know you've heard so much about blue light this, blue light that, but it is so crucial to avoid blue light at night if you want to fall asleep quickly. And the reason for this is because our bodies perceive blue light as sunlight. So when you're blasting yourself with blue light at night, you're essentially telling your body, hey, it's daytime. No need to produce melatonin. No need to get ready for sleep. We can stay up longer. And this is what makes falling asleep so much harder. And it's not just blue light from phones, laptops, and TVs. It's also overhead lights, because blue light coming down from overhead lights mimics sunlight. It's coming from the ceiling. Our bodies are like, okay, the sun's out. It's time to stay awake. And this just makes falling asleep so much harder. And they've done a study to back this claim up. And what they did was they took a group who read on the iPad and a group who read on books. And what they found was the group who read on the iPad had 50% less melatonin levels being released. And this just sends a weaker signal to your body. And your body instead, again, thinks it's daytime more so than nighttime, which makes it much harder for your body to prepare for sleep and makes it much harder for you to actually fall asleep. Now, the next reason that you are struggling to fall asleep is because you have an overactive nervous system. And this stems from daily stressors in our lives. So it can be working long hours a day and working right up to bed. It can be other random stressors like getting stuck in traffic, road rage, argument with a partner. And then it can also be consuming copious amounts of caffeine can also stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, leading to this wired but tired feeling where you are physically tired, but mentally your mind is still active and you still have racing thoughts. Now, cognitively stimulating activities can also contribute to this overactive nervous system feeling. This can be arguing with a partner, watching an exciting movie before bed, or listening to energizing music too close to bed can all stimulate that sympathetic nervous system. Now, a sleep lab study was done, and what they found was the group with a higher overactive nervous system took dramatically longer to fall asleep by about 34 minutes compared to the group with a lower active nervous system, meaning the overactive nervous system is a pretty significant factor in you falling asleep quickly. Now, the next reason that you struggle to fall asleep quickly is because of mental clutter. All day long, we are bombarded with information, to-dos, stressors, and if you do not clear that mental clutter out of your head, you end up taking it to the bedroom and your mind fixates on all these things you need to do, making it much harder to actually fall asleep. And a sleep lab study found that people who had higher mental clutter or higher cognitive arousal took around 37 minutes longer to fall asleep compared to those who had a lower mental clutter load or cognitive arousal, which is also why mental clutter is a huge factor if you want to fall asleep quickly. So then what's the solution to this problem? The answer is a wind down routine. And the reason we need a wind down routine is because our bodies are not like cell phones. They can't just simply shut off and go to bed. Instead, we need to send the right signals to our body that it is time for bed. That way our bodies can prepare for sleep, so when we actually get into bed, we fall asleep quickly and effortlessly. And that is the main purpose of the wind down routine. It bridges the gap between wakefulness and being asleep by sending the right signals to our bodies that it is time for bed. Now, the wind down routine does not just help us fall asleep quickly. It also improves sleep quality, reduces wake ups. It helps us feel more refreshed in the morning. So it is not just for falling asleep quickly. And there are a host of other benefits when you start implementing a wind down routine. Now, step one to a wind down routine is aligning our circadian rhythm and sending the right signal to our bodies that it is time for bed. Now, the first signal is to cool down. Like we talked about before, our bodies need to drop by 1 degree in core body temperature in order to actually fall asleep. And this makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. In the past times, we have been outside living in nature, and as the sun sets, the Earth's temperature goes down. So it sends the signal to our body, hey, it's nighttime. Besides light, which is the most powerful indicator by far, temperature also signals to our body a decrease in temperature that the sun is setting and it is time for our bodies to start preparing for sleep. Now, how do we actually cool down? Well, the first way is to simply turn on your AC and set your temperature to somewhere between 64 and 68 degrees and get that room nice and cold to, again, signal to your body, hey, the sun is setting, the Earth's temperature is getting lower, and it is time for you, body, to start preparing for bed. Now, the next way to cool down is to take a hot bath or hot shower 1 to 2 hours before bed. And the reason this works is because you are rapidly heating up your body, which forces your blood to move to the outside of your body, so your skin and other extremities. And this leads to your core body temperature rapidly cooling once you get out of shower. Now, we want to avoid intense exercise and also big, greasy, heavy meals 2 to 3 hours before bed, because both of these elevate our core body temperature. And I also forgot to mention that if you stack the cooling of your environment, either with AC or opening a window, and then also taking a hot bath or hot shower, you can send an even stronger signal to your body that it's time for bed. Highly recommended. Now, the next way we signal to our body it's time for bed is by managing light, and specifically avoiding blue light. Because like we talked about, blue light to our bodies is sunlight. When we blast ourselves with blue light, we are telling our bodies, hey, it's daytime. No need to prepare for sleep, time to stay up, time to start the day, when we know that is not the case. And when we avoid blue light, what happens is our body starts to produce melatonin. And melatonin itself does not make us sleepy, but what it does is it sends a signal throughout our body to tell our bodies to start getting ready for bed. And those processes are what makes us sleepy. So that's why it's so crucial to avoid blue light, because without it, you're cutting off that signal. Our bodies don't know, they can't start preparing for sleep, and that's what makes falling asleep so hard. Now, in order to actually avoid blue light, what we want to do is dim the lights around our house. Now, you want to get these lights as dark as possible. You don't need to be in pitch black darkness, but the darker you can get it, the stronger a signal you can send to your body. Candles also work very well. Next, we want to avoid blue light emitting from our phones, laptops, TVs, and the way we do this is by wearing blue light blocking glasses. You can get these on Amazon for $15 to $25, relatively inexpensive. And another way you can also filter out blue light is by using technology like Iris or Flux. I don't know about the cost on those, but I don't think it's too expensive either. Now, one clarification I need to make, which I think is really important, is if you're somebody who works pretty late into the night or pretty close to bed or scrolls on your phone or whatever, it is important to start filtering the blue light 2 to 3 hours before bed and not waiting until your wind down routine starts. And again, the reason for this is just so we can get a head start, tell our bodies, hey, it is nighttime, start preparing for sleep. I'm going to do a little more work, easy work, whatever, or scroll on my phone, anything like that. But I want you, body, to start preparing for sleep so we can fall asleep quickly and effortlessly. Now, the next way that we signal to our body that it's time for bed is by being consistent. And this is a highly slept on one. Your body thrives on consistency because it learns your nighttime routine. When you give the same cues and the right cues to your body every single night, it can start preparing for sleep ahead of time, which makes falling asleep effortless and quick. Now, when you're inconsistent with your routines and external cues every night, your body can't prepare for sleep in advance, and instead it is forced to catch up, which is why it takes you so damn long to actually fall asleep. You can think of consistency like a sleep engine. If you warm up your sleep engine ahead of time, falling asleep is going to be quick and effortless. However, if you don't warm up your sleep engine ahead of time and you're starting it cold, yes, you will eventually fall asleep, but it takes way longer and way more effort. Now, how do we stay consistent? Well, we need to pick a wind down routine start time and bedtime we can stick to on the weekdays and on the weekends. And you do not need to be perfect with this. And you can be off by 30 to 60 minutes every night, and that's totally fine. So for example, say my chosen bedtime is at 10 p.m. If I go to bed one night at 10:30 p.m. or 11 p.m., that is going to be completely fine. The same is true if you go to bed a little earlier. If you go to bed at 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m., that is totally fine. We do not need to be perfect with this. That is way too much stress. Now, for the length of the wind down routine, I recommend at least 1 hour long. If you get it to 2 hours, that's even more optimal, but 1 hour is the bare minimum if you want this to be effective. Now, one important note is that you're going to need to experiment with the length to see what works best for your body. And honestly, you need to experiment with so many components of the wind down routine just to figure out what works best for you. And through an experimentation, you can find not only what works best for you, but also what is most enjoyable. We want the wind down routine to feel like something we look forward to every night, not like an obligation. If it feels like an obligation, then you need to tweak it more. You need to experiment more. And honestly, at first, it might feel like an obligation, and that's totally fine. Again, it's a process. Now, one thing I want to mention is that if you do happen to have a late night, it still might be worth it to do your wind down routine. And the reason for this is because if you have a late night and say you're working up all the way until bed and then you jump into bed, you're going to experience the same downsides of not being able to fall asleep quickly. And then also, like we mentioned earlier, the wind down routine is not just about falling asleep quickly. It improves sleep quality, less wake-ups, feeling more refreshed in the morning. So even if you do miss your usual wind down routine start time and you're debating between, hey, do I get the sleep or do I do a wind down routine? If your mind is still racing and you feel like you're going to struggle to fall asleep, I'd say do the wind down routine. Maybe not the full routine, maybe only 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but it's going to help you fall asleep quicker and also improve the quality of your sleep, wake up less, more refreshed. So it's definitely important to actually incorporate the wind down routine, even if you are having a late night. Now, the only caveat to this is that if you're just exhausted and you know that once your head hits the pillow, you are going to fall asleep like that, then don't do the wind down routine. Listen to your body. This is more so if you feel like you're going to struggle with sleep, your mind is racing, then I'd recommend doing a shortened version at least of your wind down routine. The next step in the wind down routine is to empty our thoughts. Like I mentioned earlier, we have so much mental clutter in our head by the end of the day because we're bombarded with information, to-dos, stresses. And if we don't clear out that mental clutter, we take it to the bedroom, we fixate on it, and we struggle to fall asleep because our mind is racing. Now, there's a couple ways we can empty our thoughts. First, we can journal. This can be a written journal. It can be an audio message. It can be a selfie video. I actually did the selfie video for a period of time and I found it super helpful. But again, experiment, see what you like best. Next is what I like to call a day dump. This is talking to a partner, a friend, a roommate, and just talking about how your day went and just kind of getting that mental clutter out of your head. The next way to empty our thoughts is with a worry time. And a worry time is a set of time where you just worry about whatever's on your mind, stresses, work, anything. You just take that time to worry. And it's usually around 15 minutes long. It can be longer or shorter. And you do it sometime in the afternoon. And the goal of the worry time is to redirect our worries that we would have in the late night or during our wind down routine or any other point in our day, and instead condense it into this set time of worrying. So when we do get a worry late at night or do get a worry during our wind down routine, we can tell ourselves, hey, I'm going to worry about that during our worry time. And this prevents us from unnecessary worrying at night or during our wind down routine. And what you can do is even have a journal where anytime you get a worry, you write it down and then you take that journal to your worry time and you can worry about those things then. It's super effective way to stop worrying. And a study actually found that people who wrote down their to-dos 2 to 3 hours before bed fell asleep 50% faster than those who didn't. And one thing I do want to mention is that when it comes to journaling, you want to do this at least 1 hour before bed. And the reason for this, if you do it too close to bed, you can actually trigger not only your sympathetic nervous system, but make your mind start to race. So it has the opposite effect and can be even worse. So you want to put the journal and empty your thought time during the beginning of your wind down routine, not super close to bed. That is going to have adverse effects. Now, the last step of the wind down routine is to relax. And the reason this is so crucial is because in order to fall asleep, our parasympathetic nervous system needs to be active. And the more activated we can make it, the faster we're going to fall asleep, the better sleep quality we're going to get, the less wake ups we're going to have, and the more refreshed we're going to feel in the morning. Now, there are two ways we can relax. The first way is through deep rest. And deep rest actively shifts our nervous system into a parasympathetic state. Think of things like meditation or breath work. Next, we have shallow rest. And shallow rest can feel relaxing, but it doesn't actually have a huge effect on shifting our nervous system into a parasympathetic state. These are things like reading or watching relaxing TV. Now, both of these are necessary for an optimal wind down routine. Deep rest is necessary to help us shift into a parasympathetic state, and shallow rest is necessary to help our mind calm down and then also make the wind down routine more enjoyable. Now, let's dive deeper into deep rest. And deep rest, again, is when we actively shift our nervous system into a parasympathetic state. And how much deep rest you need in your wind down routine is dependent on how stressed you are throughout the day. If you are constantly on the go, stressed out, you're going to need a lot more deep rest than somebody who isn't as stressed or incorporates more breaks throughout their day. So it's going to be totally dependent on you, and you will need to experiment. And it's also going to be dynamic. You know, some days you're not going to be as stressed, and other days you are going to be stressed and going to need more deep rest in order to shift your nervous system into a parasympathetic state. Now, the best way to do deep rest relaxation is through breath work. And the reason for this is it's quick, it's effortless, and extremely effective because breath work is a direct link into your nervous system. Now, I recommend doing 10 to 15 minutes. I would say closer to the end of your routine, but as always, experiment. And you can do things like meditation, box breathing, physiological sighs. There's so many breathwork practices that you can incorporate. A study showed that people with insomnia who did 20 minutes of slow breathing before bed fell asleep faster and also improved their sleep quality. Now, some other ways we can do deep rest relaxation are with a hot shower, hot bath, doing some stretching or using the massage gun on yourself, even doing like Tai Chi or Qigong can all be really effective. Also, taking supplements like magnesium glycinate can activate our parasympathetic nervous system. Now, one important point I want to make is that if you combine these practices, so say doing some breath work and listening to some theta or delta waves, you can get this very potent relaxation effect where 1 plus 1 does not equal 2, but 1 plus 1 equals 10. And it can be truly magical to do before bed, especially that one I just mentioned. Doing the breath work and the theta waves can be really effective. Now, the next type of rest I want to talk about is shallow rest. Now, like I mentioned earlier, shallow rest does not actively shift our nervous system into a parasympathetic state, but these activities can still feel relaxing and are super crucial for making your wind down routine enjoyable. And that is the two keys to shallow rest. They need to be enjoyable, but they also need to be low stimulation. We want them to be low stimulation so they don't stimulate us and activate our nervous system into a sympathetic state like we talked about before. Now, I want to give an example of what low stimulation means. And a good example is of a bookworm. If we were to tell a bookworm to read before bed, yes, it would be enjoyable, but it wouldn't be low stimulation. It would be high stimulation because they really like reading. So when they would read before bed, that would stimulate their nervous system. That would keep them up. And that's what we don't want. So it's really important to pick something that is enjoyable, but also low stimulation or almost a little boring. So maybe instead of giving them a book, we tell them, hey, go draw a picture or go listen to a calming podcast. Do something that's not as exciting to you as reading a book. And that's why it's really important to experiment with this and figure out what is enjoyable and what is low stimulation. Now, shallow rest is probably going to take up a good chunk of your routine. How much of it actually does, you will need to figure that out on your own through experimentation. But some other examples of shallow rest include reading, journaling. It could be talking to a partner and socializing. It could be listening to a low stimulation podcast. It can even be scrolling on your phone. Granted, you have blue light blocking glasses or you use software that filters out blue light. It could even be watching a movie, listening to some relaxing music. You need to figure out what works best for you because we're all different. What is stimulating to one person might not be stimulating to another person. For example, I've known people who can watch TV, wear blue light blocking glasses, and fall asleep fine. For me, if I watch TV before bed, it keeps me up. I can't do it. So again, you're going to just have to experiment. Now, one thing we want to avoid is work. And the reason for this is because work triggers a sympathetic response. It activates our sympathetic nervous system and it makes us go into work mode, not relax mode. So we want to avoid it, not just in doing deep work, but any capacity of work, shallow work, emails, learning about subjects related to work, planning work, conversations about work. We want to try to eliminate as much as possible during our wind down routine to avoid activating our sympathetic response and turning on work mode. Now, the only exception to this is when you are emptying your thoughts towards the beginning of your wind down routine. You might be thinking about work, you might be writing down about work, and that is totally fine. Just make sure to do that again at the beginning of your routine. But after that point, you should not be doing anything work related. Next, let's recap what a successful wind down routine is. First, we need to signal to our body that it's time for bed. We need to cool down. We need to manage light by avoiding blue light, and we need to be consistent, having roughly the same start time of our wind down routine and going to bed at roughly the same time every single night. Next, we need to empty our thoughts. We need to clear the mental clutter out of our head so we don't end up taking it into the bedroom. And we do this through journaling, a day dump, or worry time. And after that, we need to relax. We need to get sufficient deep rest to shift our nervous system into a parasympathetic state. And we need to do sufficient shallow rest to make our routine enjoyable. Now, imagine implementing this routine and being able to fall asleep quickly and effortlessly every night without needing to battle your thoughts or stare at the ceiling for 60 minutes or get frustrated on why your body won't turn off. And imagine not only being able to fall asleep fast, but also getting better quality sleep, waking up more refreshed, waking up less throughout the night. And imagine not needing to rely on supplements, sleep pills, or other drugs in order to just fall asleep. That is what the wind down routine accomplishes, and that is what it helped me do. It helped me not only improve my quality of sleep, but helped me go from falling asleep in 60 plus minutes every single night down to just 17 minutes. And it can help you do the same thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them below in the comments and I will respond to them.